I left for 2 weeks. Right out 2 weeks afterwards, I left to get married. And I took a whole day of vacation. And then, of course, I introduced them all to my husband, and they treated us royally. My husband went back to Martinsville. I lived in Virginia. Stay in D.C. in Washington, and he went back to Martinsville. So he was gone. We'd see each other on weekends. He would come, or I would go down there. But 2 or 3, no, it wasn't 2 or 3 years. About a year and a half later, I had a son. And they came to visit me. They gave me gifts. They came out to our apartment, and all kinds of things. I could not say that couldn't have been treated any better there. There was a time when going to the cafeteria, which I couldn't go in the beginning, but when I started going, and I'd go up with these fellas, they'd tell me that I needed to leave a tip. But I'd look around, they didn't. They said, oh yeah, I did. I put it in when I paid. I put it in when I paid. And I put my tip there. Then on my birthday one time, here I got all of these, got a big birthday party, and he came and got my money back. But all kinds of, they put, all kinds of tricks. They did play on me. But I never learned so much in my life,
Now, there was a woman that had caused you some problems when she saw your husband.
Yes, yes. That was, she saw, that was, asked me, was I, who was it? And I said, that was my husband. And then, of course, she asked me to meet her. And that particular one I told Scotty Pappin about. And he was my best buddy. He was older, but just knew so much. And he wanted to make sure that everybody, some people don't want you to know as much as they know. If he could stuff it in your head, he would. Then, again, it was Scotty, we were at another building. It was Scotty Pappin, the same thing happened. But in this particular case, the lady told me, at that time, there was 2 or 3 years, a couple years later, I guess. At that time, I had a son, and my husband had moved to Washington. He brought me, I don't know, typically I drove. I don't know why, that maybe the car wasn't running, maybe his car wasn't running, maybe he was off or something. But anyway, he brought me out that morning. And my son was with him in the car. And actually, I think he probably walked me to the door or something. I don't know. And with my son, Ernie, who was just the cutest little fella in the world. And people at Melpar who knew him, wanted to see him all the time because he was just a doll. But anyway, when I went in, I was in there, and this lady called me. And she asked me the same thing. Was that, I don't know why it was always women who did it. Asked me, was that my husband? And I said, yes. And she said, your child? And I said, yes. She said, well, when you leave this evening, said this will be your last time. She said, because you won't be in no condition to ever come back to work here. So my thing was, gee whiz, what have I done? Thinking my job. And then she said, because I will make sure that you will never come back here. She said, when you walk out that door, I'll be waiting for you. Then it dawned on me that, it wasn't anything on my job. So again, I guess I was stunned, and the same fella, Scotty, asked me what was wrong, and I told him. And I saw him get up and walk away. And the next thing I know, there was a person who was the head of the division there. He came over and he told me, you'll never have to worry about anything as long as you're here with us at Melpar. That police had come and gotten her, taken her out, and the police would be there every evening every morning when I came in. So in my case, and in all cases, that wherever I worked and the people had the opportunity, because they knew who I was, they knew who I mingled with, they knew a lot of the, my friends or other folk, who worked there in other areas, they treated them. I mean, they were human beings. They were human. And I'm not saying that all the other people weren't, but they had human ideas. They had human, they knew where.
So what time frame was this? What year was this?
That would have been about, that would have been about 1960, or 59, about 1959 I would have. So
you went to Virginia State College,
right.
And you graduated with a degree in
physics.
Okay, and so you're literally busting through the glass ceiling because one, you're African American, you're a woman, and you're in a position where it's predominantly a male type occupation.
That's right. I knew. Well, I'm saying that because I did not know that. I knew at Virginia State, I knew, because there had been only one other female who had majored in physics there. And I was well known there for that. I worked the physics lab. I did did all the experiments and everything. But I didn't realize that, I just realized that people just thought they didn't want to do it. It's just like chemistry. There were not a lot, but a couple did major in chemistry. And to me, I thought chemistry was harder than physics.
Now you talk about a time too when you got to meet Martin Luther King.
I did. I was at Virginia State, and I knew him by name, and I knew he was a young minister. At Virginia State, we had chapel every Friday evening. We had chapel right after lunch, so that would have been about 2 o'clock, 1 or 2 o'clock. And you were allowed 3 excuses a semester from chapel, and you had chapel every Sunday and every Friday, but you were only allowed 3 excuses. But I enjoyed it. I loved to go. And I guess they selected, I don't know who decided that you would select, who you would select, and I was just called down to, it was one of the deans, it wasn't the president's office. I'm trying to think of the man who did it. His wife worked there. Oh, gee, she was one of the deans. But he wasn't president then. But anyway, they asked, that they had visited, and Martin Luther King wasn't the only one I had shown around, Maybe they wouldn't tell people, oh, we have some white people here, but I wasn't, because a lot of students thought I was. A lot of them did. They had told people that school was integrated.
Because you were there?
Because I was there. And there was a fellow named Wilford Brown who was there, and he probably wasn't quite as light as I was, but they were saying that school had been integrated. And maybe that's what. Maybe they want to tell Martin Luther King, oh, we're starting here. But anyway, you would just walk them around and, show them different things and all until it was time to go to chapel. And that, then you carry them on to chapel or took them back to where they started from, just to talk about it, and maybe because I was in something different, an area different or something. But I remember Shannon Phillips and Martin Luther King and the guy who came to was in D.C. He was on the council at one time in D.C. Oh gosh, but I remember those having been there and all because but I did not know in any. That movement really hadn't. That was in the 50s, you know, and I really didn't know that much about it. I really didn't. And I, I guess, you know, and I know there were the city of Petersburg was very segregated because we were one. We were not, and girls were not, ladies were not allowed to go off campus alone. You couldn't even go off campus. You couldn't go off campus with your parents if they drove up there and to take you off campus unless you had an excuse to go off. That had been
And Virginia State is close to Petersburg.
That's right. It's in. I was called Ettrick then. It's called Petersburg now. It was a little town called Ettrick, and it's supposedly in Ettrick, but it was Petersburg. Virginia State is for Petersburg. But anyway, it very restricted. We were supposed to be in the dormitories by a certain time, checked in, signed in. You did not go back out. I think we were supposed to be in by 6:30. I think it was 6 or 6:30, and then each year you were given another hour.
Was this for safety because of race issues, or?
I think it could have been because of race issues, but it was safety because of young ladies. You know, you weren't even supposed to hold hands or anything. So they took that safety issue into consideration also. But they had there was a lot of entertainment there. I mean, they called them sock hops at the dormitories. They would start at the freshman dorm, and all the fellows would rush into the freshman dorm. The